Put your faith in the light.
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade, and well, in this one we're going to talk about a huge affix revamp that Blizzard is doing for the War Within. They basically just erased everything they told us a few weeks ago and started from scratch. Okay guys, so this is the blue post, and well, I already read this, so I'm going to summarize it and just go to the point. I don't want to make this a super long video. Well, Blizzard says that they want variety to exist in Mythic Plus dungeons, but only on the low end keys, and once people start pushing at a high enough level, keys are basically going to be the same. They want people to have mastery of the dungeon itself and not of random affixes that happen. Okay, now that we know Blizzard's intentions, let's go over the affix changes themselves. So they're reducing the total number of mechanical affixes on Keystone for players progressing through the system from 2 to 1. The following affixes have been retired from the War Within. Sanguine, great. Yeah, Sanguine was always a very annoying affix. It was a big key slower because of those mobs that didn't want to move in Sanguine, especially the ones that was casting something but couldn't be kicked, so you only could like disorient them, and or you use displacement effect. Bolstering, also a big annoying affix because it also limits the dungeon design. You can't make packs with small mobs and a big one because then the big one is just going to be super deadly. Raging. So Raging was another one of those affixes that basically made dungeon design very difficult because of how it interacted. In some dungeons it was super deadly because some mobs like did some cast that just wiped the group. In other dungeons it didn't do anything, you know. So with this change it just it levels down the playing field. And finally, Bursting is also being removed. And Bursting was one of those affixes that was really hard to manage in lower keys, lower to mid keys, and super easy to manage at high keys. So removing that variance is really good for the game. And they also say, we've heard feedback that applying bonuses unevenly to players feels exclusionary regardless of overall impact. Affixes that were part of the last Mythic Keystone test will no longer apply to Keystone. So Reckless, Focused, Attuned, and Torn. Basically the affixes that increased the specific damage types are all scrapped. So yeah, I didn't see these affixes as bad or good. They were just there, you know. Eventually people were going to make like got comps around them. So in the end, they were probably going to be bad for the game. But yeah, it's fine that they're gone. Now we have a better set of affixes from what I've read. So next up, they say our one bucket of affixes for players progressing through the system offers variety alongside with positive effects for executing these affixes that apply more evenly. They're introducing thematic elements to affixes by invoking Xal'atath and Mythic Plus Keystones with her own set of affixes. So we're bringing back seasonal affixes, which is fine, you know. As long as it's not super annoying, I think seasonal affixes are good. They also say that they're utilizing passive affixes to signpost expected increases in player mastery and commensurate rewards as player progress to Mythic Keystone system. So everything for the higher level players is going to be passive, while for like people progressing to the system at the lower levels, it's going to have a bit more active components. We're aiming to eliminate push weeks by providing a consistent challenge that focuses solely on the dungeon for players seeking to advance deeper into Mythic Keystone system for scores and titles. So yeah, there's no longer going to be variance in high keys. Every key is going to be the same affixes, and you're just playing the dungeon itself. Okay, now let's talk about the new affixes, the Xal'atath one. So starting at Keystone level 2, Xal'atath herself will manifest in the dungeon, introducing a rotation of affixes under the banner Xal'atath's Bargain. These affixes not only seek to empower the denizens of the dungeon, but also grant players the opportunity to harness their effects. For the first test this week, we will have 2 Xal'atath's Bargains affixes available. One affix is an event that players must deal with periodically, while the other affix is a passive effect on creatures throughout the dungeon. So the first one, Xal'atath's Bargain Ascendant. While in combat, Xal'atath rain down orbs of cosmic energy that attempt to empower nearby enemies, increasing their haste and movement speed. If players disrupt these orbs, they claim the effect for themselves. So that sounds really good as Kiska's Curse affix. I don't know how the orbs will probably work. Maybe you have to either kill the orb before it touches the enemy, or maybe it's a swirly that you have to soak, or maybe it's like a little orb that drops in the ground and if you just walk over it you pick it up. Something like that is probably. The next one is Xal'atath's Bargain Frenzied. So non-boss enemies become frenzied at 30% health remaining, increasing their haste by 40% but increasing their damage taken by 20%. So this is just a pretty nice Kiss Curse affix. It makes mobs die faster when they're low. It's really easy to prepare for this. It's not like raging where the mob is like immune to CC, so you can't like do anything to it and you're just gonna take the damage to the face. You can prepare for this. When they get low, just CC them and nuke them down. So they also say that starting at Keystone level 7, a new affix, Challenger's Peril, directly affects the dungeon timer. This affix emphasizes precise play and strategic execution, placing the greater risk on player decisions. So Challenger's Peril, dying subtracts 15 seconds from their time remaining rather than 5 seconds. Okay, so that one I don't like too much, because this makes it so people are going to either rage more when people die, or are going to leave the dungeon a lot faster because they think they're not going to be able to time it with a few deaths, you know. So yeah, I don't like this too much. Maybe they should reduce this to 10 seconds instead of 5, you know. I think that's just enough punishment. Double the timer that we lose when someone dies, but 15 seconds is a lot. Consider that 12 deaths is 3 minutes, and that's basically a fortified boss death, you know. So yeah, it's a pretty harsh punishment. And starting at level 12, a new affix replaces Xal'atath's Bargain affixes. At this level, Xal'atath revokes her bargain, so we lose all Kiss Curse effects, empowering dungeon creatures with 20% increased health and damage. That's a huge amount. So Xal'atath's Guile. Xal'atath betrays players, revoking her bargains and increasing the health and damage of enemies by 20%. Yeah, that one looks super scary, you know, like everything is going to be deadly in a dungeon. See, she's basically just applying fortified and tyrannical to every single key, no matter what. But then again, we're no longer dealing with anything that's going to slow you, you know. There's no bolstering, there's no sanguine, there's nothing that variable. You're just going to play the dungeon, everything has a bit more damage and has more health. But you only have to remember whatever the dungeon does. You no longer have to deal with any random stuff that can happen because of the other affixes that are gone. So I think this is just going to be fine. Okay, after that, they also talk about Fortified and Tyrannical. So they say Fortified and Tyrannical now serve as milestone affixes that alternate between Keystone levels 4 and 10 on a weekly rotation. We feel this provides us with a clearer points in the system where increases in difficulty and rewards occur. This also affords more distinction between key levels for players progressing through the system, and a consistent week-to-week experience for players progressing deeper into Mythic Plus Keystone system. So let's see the summary that they made. Here are examples of what Keystones look under the new model. So from level 2 to 11, we have the following affixes. On a +2, you gain Xal'atath's Bargain affixes that appear on a weekly rotation. On a +4, you get either Fortified or Tyrannical, alternating every week. On a +7, you get the Challenger's Pearl, so you lose more time whenever someone dies. And a +10, you have another either or Tyrannical and Fortified alternating on a weekly rotation. So basically on a 10, you have both Fortified and Tyrannical, you got Challenger's Pearl, and you got also the Bargain Kiss Curse affixes. But if you keep pushing higher, from level 12 and up, Keystones have the following affixes. Fortified, Challenger's Pearl, Tyrannical, Xal'atath's Guile replaces the weekly Xal'atath's Bargain affixes. So yeah, it's going to be a lot more consistent for people that are pushing up. You no longer have those random deaths that occur because of affixes themselves, you know, sanguine, bursting, or a raging just one shot that you couldn't kick or something like that. You just have to play the dungeon better and better to keep pushing higher and higher. Which is great because this system rewards consistency, it rewards knowledge over the dungeon, and actually proves mastery over it because you're no longer having like random stuff happen because of the old affix system. And the last thing they're talking about here is how they're going to give the score under this new model. They don't know yet, but I think it's very simple. You know, if you do keys 9 or lower, you have to play 2 different weeks, because you're going to only play Tyrannical or Fortified to get your full score. But if you play keys over level 10, you just have to play 1 week to get your full score. Very simple. They end the blue post by saying, "We believe these changes, along with our heroic and mythic dungeon changes, provide players with ways to engage with dungeons in a setting they prefer. This is a fresh look at Mythic Plus, and we look forward to your feedback and continuing discussions on the affix and overall system changes. We'll see you in the dungeons." So are these changes good? Yes, in my opinion, these changes are great because, like I said before, they reward consistency, knowledge of the dungeon, and remove random elements from the old affixes like bolstering or sanguine. Now you just play the dungeon itself, and because of that, it also opens dungeon design a lot more. And that's going to be the end of the video. If you like my content, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone.